Hello, everyone. Sorry about that false start. On behalf of the Green Electronics Council, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on wearable electronics for health, well-being, and a sustainable future. My name is Ben Levin, Senior Manager of Technology and Assessment at GEC, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Recent events, coupled with some significant maturity in the technologies for sensors, power, and connectivity, have led to a surge of interest in how organizations can leverage wearable electronic devices to benefit the health and well-being of workforces, customers, and citizens alike. We've also seen a simultaneous influx of exciting new offerings and business models in the space, even in the most recent few months. So, in line with GEC's mission to support institutional purchasers who are making decisions about what products to buy, I'm excited to announce that we are launching a new EPEAT category covering health and wellness wearable electronic devices. This new category, whose development I'll be managing, will enable purchasers to identify products that conform to sustainability criteria and help support sustainable procurement decisions. Towards the end of today's webinar, I'll be back for a few minutes to give you a timeline and some concrete ways that you can participate in the criteria development process. For today's webinar, we have two presenters for you, whom I'll introduce in a moment. But first, I want to give you a few administrative reminders. Please note that all attendee lines have been muted. So if you have questions, and I hope you do, please type them into the questions box, and we'll get to as many as we can after our final speaker has finished her presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available afterwards for you to review again, or for people who were unable to join live, or for you to share it with your colleagues. So it is now my privilege to welcome our distinguished presenters. Starting our discussion will be Nancy Gillis, CEO of the Green Electronics Council. Nancy has more than 20 years of experience leveraging sustainability to increase competitiveness, reduce risk, and foster innovation in the public and private sectors. Before joining GEC, Nancy was a senior executive with Ernst & Young, where she managed client engagements related to supply chain resiliency and sustainable procurement for Fortune 100 companies. She also launched and served as global lead for Ernst & Young's Resilient and Responsible Supply Chains suite of services. Nancy joined Ernst & Young from the U.S. General Services Administration, where she was responsible for developing sustainability-related supplier evaluation criteria and expanding the use of sustainability standards in federal procurements. Nancy?
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. I am excited to be part of this webinar today on an incredibly important topic, not just for its response to COVID, but because of what it can provide as far as accessibility to health and well-being to citizens and other individuals across the globe. So this is super exciting. As was stated, I'm Nancy Gillis. I'm the CEO of the Green Electronics Council, and we are hosting this webinar as an initial launch activity for a future forthcoming EPEAT category covering wearables and in the health and well-being sector. Now, many of you probably have joined because you know EPEAT and its role as the leading global ecolabel within the technology sector, but some of you might not know us, the Green Electronics Council, or might not know all that EPEAT does. So I'm going to take a few moments to talk to you about the Green Electronics Council, EPEAT, and why we are so super excited about the future launch of this new category. So as you can see here, the Green Electronics Council, we are a mission-driven nonprofit. We've been in existence for more than a decade. And really, we're one of those organizations who understands and appreciates the benefits that technology provide. But we refuse to accept those benefits at the price of people and planet. So what we've done is, over the last decade, is we've leveraged the power of purchasers. Next slide. And by purchasers, I mean institutional purchasers, those at the public and private sector. So by public, national governments, cities, municipalities. By private sector, it's the major players within sectors such as hospitality, finance, academia, just some of those. And those purchasers are ones that buy a single signature on a contract buy thousands of something. And if they're choosing to buy thousands of a credibly sustainable technology, be it a laptop or else, then what they're doing is they're really serving as an incredibly strong demand driver for those who make the products and services. So that's why GEC, who again wants to see a world of only sustainable technology as a way for us to benefit from the technology, but make sure that we're addressing technology's environmental and social impacts, we work with those purchasers. And in working with those purchasers, it means that we provide a suite of freely available tools and resources. Many of the ones that you see here on the slide are ones that you can access at the greenelectronicscouncil.org website. Yes, I know, an inevitably long URL to type in. But as you see here, the Green Electronics Council provides access to purchaser guides. So again, these are tools that purchasers can use. These guides have questions when purchasers are wondering, how do I buy something sustainable such as cloud services? We have a guide for that. We also are proud to say that we're launching our circular products and services guide just next month. In addition to guides, we also offer examples of sustainable procurement policy languages, contract language. We even offer training, not just for those who are still starting sustainable procurement programs, because to be honest, most countries and private sector purchasing programs already integrate some semblance of sustainability. Here, actually, when we give a training, what we give on is best practices or innovations in the area of sustainable procurement, as well as how does one leverage legal paradigms to make sure that you can engage in sustainable procurement, whatever jurisdiction you find yourself in. But then I talked about EPEAT. So one of the other major initiatives that GEC is proud to manage is the leading IT eco-label called EPEAT. Next slide, please. Now, EPEAT has been around for a decade, and it currently covers such common IT products such as televisions, laptops, tablets, mobile phones, all of those things that we find really necessary to engage in day-to-day life. We also, though, have expanded beyond this, what we tend to call the office environment of IT products, to those products that we know are really necessary for the connected world that we find ourselves in. So servers that are part of all of those data centers, and network infrastructure, which is actually a category that we'll be launching early next year. We also have just finished and will be launching next month a category on photovoltaic modules and inverters. You're talking about data centers, you're talking about how they source the connectivity that we have. You're also talking about how those data centers are pulling energy. And of course, renewable leads to solar, leads to photovoltaic modules and inverters. So as you see here, EPEAT increasingly is the eco-label that really seeks to address the sustainability of those technologies that are fundamental to how we now communicate and engage. And that, of course, is one of the reasons that we're super excited to be able to initiate the start of the process to launch a category focused on health and well-being wearables. Next slide. Now, what impact can an eco-label have, and in particular, what impact has EPEAT had? Well, I'm proud to say, if you're looking here, EPEAT, as I stated, is the largest eco-label in the IT sector. By that I mean, it's used by more purchasers globally than any other eco-label. And that means that those purchasers are requiring EPEAT products. In a moment, I'll tell you what impacts EPEAT addresses, so you can understand that by using EPEAT, purchasers really are making an environmental and social difference. And when I say that it's really the most used eco-label, I'm talking about the fact that last year alone, based on not even half of the purchasers that have been using EPEAT, we were able to quantify that EPEAT had at least $2 billion worth of expenditure behind it. That means $2 billion worth of contracts required EPEAT. It's a lot of impact. And that's actually why we focus on helping institutional purchasers make the decision when they buy to buy sustainable and to do it using a credible program such as EPEAT. Now, I can't hesitate to highlight something that we're a little proud of, which is that just recently, Amazon launched its Climate Pledge Friendly program. Of course, many of us know Amazon because as COVID has kept us home appropriately, there are still needs that we need to have met. And so we've been using this platform, among others, to gain access to some of the products that we want. Now, Amazon, in launching this program, looked far and wide globally for those eco-labels that best represent both the level of sustainability impact and the high bar of credibility that they wanted to put their brand behind. And I'm very proud and honored to say that out of all of the eco-labels that Amazon could have chosen to represent IT products, they chose EPEAT. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, EPEAT is launching this initiative to start focusing on the development of a category for wearable electronics that address health and well-being. What motivated us to do that? Well, first, let's think a little bit about historically what's different now about wearables that wasn't necessarily the same just 4 or 5 years ago. And it's, of course, as I said, why we focus on network connectivity. It's connectivity. It's the ability of those wearables to not only, because of also battery advancements, be on a long time, it's also the potential that these wearables now have of capturing information, sharing that information with appropriate parties, and having that information then come back and really assist in both diagnostic and other kinds of health practices. So that's one of the reasons that all of a sudden we've been looking at wearable technology. Then there's, of course, the fact that COVID has struck. And even though EPEAT was interested in well-being wearables, for health and well-being in advance of COVID, one cannot lack to acknowledge that COVID really has exacerbated the interest in this. And why? Because many of you, as I find myself today, are unable to leave our homes, and yet we still have needs as far as healthcare that have to be addressed. And this is where we see wearable technology really helping. And it helps both in providing access to those who have even increased sensitivities of being able to leave their homes, but also it is part of, as people do go back to work and find themselves, it is something that can be used there. It is something in which, and we'll hear about Fitbit and some of the great advancements they've already been able to do with their technology. It's something that allows educational systems, schools, to be able to use technology to help identify increased potential areas of infection. COVID or be any other type of pandemics or those types of concerns in the future. So COVID has really brought to the attention really what the benefits of wearables, especially for health and well-being, can provide. And so as you see here in the lower right-hand corner of the slide, it's not surprisingly that where this market for wearable technology had already been one of tremendous presumed growth, you can only imagine that that growth is going to be faster and it's going to be even more extensive. And so with that, it's the reason why the Green Electronics Council, as managers of EPEAT, is really committed to launching this new category. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we're really excited about and why we believe not only Amazon, but purchasers globally rely on EPEAT is because of the fact that EPEAT is a eco-label that not only through its process of development, which is a balanced voluntary consensus process to develop criteria that pools together voices from all necessary segments, such as industry and academia and policy members and so forth. It's not only that the criteria developed in a particular way that we think really result in credible criteria, it's that those criteria are life cycle, and it's also that those criteria actually identify areas where we find there usually is sustainability gains. And these areas include the ability to identify necessary reductions of chemicals of concern, both chemicals that are used still in products, but also during the manufacture and assembly phases. Obviously, one of the major areas that we'll look at is the impact that technology has on climate change. So, not surprisingly, a major impact area that EPEAT addresses is climate change mitigation. How can energy efficiency requirements, again, both within the product and as part of the process of assembling the product, how can those efficiencies address climate change? And what many people may not know, even if they know EPEAT, is that EPEAT doesn't only have criteria that are relevant to the product, we also have criteria that are relevant to the producer. Corporate, environmental, social, and governance performance criteria. And last but not least, we also, of course, have criteria that look at the sustainable use of resources. And in fact, the ability of particular products to have life elongation, repairability, and recyclability. Because one of the sadly growing waste streams globally is e-waste. And here, of course, is the area of impact where EPEAT attempts to slow that growth, to slow e-waste. And not only does this bucket of criteria address end of life, it actually gets into that new conversation of circularity, that area of great interest for us, and where I mentioned we're even launching a separate purchaser guide focused on that topic. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the dynamic criteria development process, suffice it to say, from what you see here, is it is a process in which we seek to bring all necessary voices. Because not only do you have to have significant technical expertise to develop criteria that have impact, like I just described, you also need to go ahead and bring those voices of the people who are responsible for making the products. Criteria that don't result in product aren't helpful to anybody, which is why we bring a balanced group of representatives together. And as I also mentioned, I talked about the sustainability impacts that EPEAT addresses in both the manufacture and assembly and end of life. It's because EPEAT is a ecolabel focused on all life cycle phases. So EPEAT products are ones where we've looked at the environmental and social impacts during the extractive phase, during manufacture and assembly, production, during use, and as I mentioned, end of life. Next slide, please. So this is giving you a little bit of an overview of the Green Electronics Council, of EPEAT, and of course of the reasons why we think launching this new category is something that is not only timely, but helpful for so many people. But of course, that's our vantage point. I'm super excited to be joined by representative from Fitbit, and let me turn this webinar back over to Ben so he can share with you who that representative is, and they can share with you some of the great work that they've already been doing. Ben?
Great. Thank you very much, Nancy. You did a wonderful job setting the stage for health and wellness wearables category and helping us understand why this category is going to be so important and the sustainability impacts that will have in the future of the market space. We'll go to the next slide. There we are. Our second presenter today, I'm thrilled to have Amy McDonough with us. She is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Fitbit Health Solutions. She is a passionate, driven, and multidisciplinary executive with 20 years of experience. For the last 10 of those years, she has served in numerous leadership roles at Fitbit, a company that pioneered the wearable category and is a leader in wearable devices with more than 70 million devices sold since its inception. As one of Fitbit's first employees, Amy has played a pivotal role in helping the company scale quickly. Amy built Fitbit's original group health division, which is now Fitbit Health Solutions, from the ground up. Through developing strong relationships with employers and health plans and health systems, Amy is advancing innovative ways to integrate wearables into healthcare management, supporting better health outcomes. Over to you, Amy.
Thanks, Ben, for that great, kind introduction. Thrilled to be here today. And thank you, Nancy. It's really a privilege to be a part of GEC and the EPEAT commitments to balancing technology and those innovations to the needs of our planet and to making sure that we have a considerate and thoughtful approach to address those needs over time. And the health and well-being of our planet, of course, which is really important to us. We don't think about health just about individuals. We're really thrilled to have the opportunity to share here today with all of the participants our efforts in sustainability and to talk a little bit about the commitments that we've made and the evolution as we go forward. There we go. For about, sorry for the slight delay, there was a little lag there. So for about 13 years now, we have been on a mission to make the world healthier. And that's everyone in the world healthier. Really important tenets of Fitbit are accessibility, really pioneering the category to help break down those needs around health and make sure that they're accessible, affordable, that they work across platform and compatibility with other devices that you might use around your health. Those are really important tenets that have been important to us really since the very beginning. And to help you not only track those, but provide guidance and inspiration to be able to meet your own individual personal health goals, and then to be able to have the opportunity to be able to do that at scale that Ben referenced. And so we've really worked to make that fun and engaging, as well as providing outcomes, and to do that using the tools that work best for the individuals. And we believe that health really belongs to everyone, and health goes just, so much more than just exercise. And of course, health is so front and center in the worlds we live in today. And really, we've had, sorry, there's just a slight delay on the advancement of the slides here. But really what we're very focused on is bringing it all together. There we go. And it all fits together. We really think about health holistically, and that is around key pillars that we're very focused on. And those are namely sleep, activity, nutrition, and stress. So mental well-being, physical well-being, your sleep, which plays such a critical role in overall health, and of course your activity levels. And really bringing that over together and bringing that together holistically is a very important tenet for us. And this approach is so critical, especially at this juncture in time when we think about COVID-19 and how that has made health and maintenance both front and center in our minds, but also made it more challenging as we deal with the new realities of keeping safe and keeping healthy. And so really important and front and center for all of us is how we can focus on our day-to-day health. And our mission was really made for this moment. And we quickly really mobilized and saw that we had an opportunity to add really meaningful value during this moment in time. And namely, that was the efforts that we had around COVID-19 that really helped us realize and scale our mission to make everyone in the world healthier and to give them the tools they need to be successful. One of the first things we did was we have a premium membership that gives access to mindfulness tools, to workouts that you can do from the comfort, convenience, and safety of your own home, and really supporting our users during this time. So we opened up a 90-day free utilization of all of our content and guided programs within these areas to help everyone, again, live their healthiest life around all of those 4 pillars of activity, sleep, nutrition, and mindfulness during this difficult and challenging time. And just a little bit of a description of kind of what that all includes here. So it helps us stay healthy indoors. We also really made some other efforts that we'll talk a little bit more, but pointing to really credible resources and also access to telehealth should it be needed, which we all know has really helped to fill in the gaps as we look to stay safe and healthy at home. Okay. We also made some, some really innovative experiences during this period. We took a small team across our subject matter experts in research and design, engineering, as well as manufacturing. And again, this is where we felt we had a responsibility with the skill sets that we have within Fitbit. There was a little bit of a secret mission, not so secret anymore, but to build an emergency use ventilator. As you all probably remember, at the beginning of the pandemic, there was predicted to be a very large shortage of ventilators. And we have deep expertise in this area. How do you build high quality, lower cost, kind of scaled vehicles? And that allowed us to develop Fitbit Flow, which is the product you see here. And that received an FDA emergency use authorization in EUA during the pandemic, again, and will be available as needed to be able to support the community globally. In addition to that, we also, in partnership, because we do feel that this is, again, a global problem and needs an industry behind it to be able to meet all the needs, we were able to work with Will Stanford and Scripps, as well as based on prior research we've done with them, and launch a consortium, as well as launching our own COVID-19 research study. And we've actually published some preprint of the results there. And our study, which looks at COVID-19 specifically, we were able to detect nearly 50% of COVID-19 cases one day before participants were able to report any of those same symptoms with 70% specificity. Where this becomes really critical and important is in the high level of asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic spread and helping with the containment of spread during this period. So we were really excited. This capitalized on some work that we had done earlier with Scripps around indication of flu and influenza-like illness. And now what we're doing is doing research to look at how could we apply that to COVID-19 specifically. And again, comes back to really strong ability to be able to kind of provide some of those early illness symptoms or warnings to let individuals know that they may be at risk for feeling ill, and we're able to do that prior to them feeling those actual symptoms themselves. And so really promising early results here. And that actually developed on the enterprise side a new product that we introduced into the market just a few months ago called Fitbit Care Ready for Work. And what this does is take that same holistic approach that we talked about with activity, sleep, nutrition, and mindfulness, and then adds in some of this COVID-19 early symptom detection and allows for both a daily check-in process to help individuals go safely back into the office, the workplace, whatever that might look like, the sport fields, the education or school environment, but to do that and to provide those employees or members or individuals tools to be able to understand their own very personal health metrics and make good decisions for themselves, and again help with that early containment and to reduce the spread. So it provides a daily check-in experience as well as insights into health metrics, and then also supporting the emotional well-being during this time. So providing tools and tips from coaches that we offer as part of our service to be able to help folks manage the mental impact and the wellness impact from a well-being and stress perspective as well. So we've had a really comprehensive approach to our, again, responsibility and call for our mission during this really difficult time, and really our obligation and commitment to support our users. And that is really, that approach to this holistic approach and approach to well-being also applies to the way that we're thinking about our approach to sustainability and our role in that. And so I think it's important that first we kind of acknowledge that there are inherent issues of all electronics, and certainly with health and well-being as it relates to wellness devices, and that we are committed to addressing these issues. by looking holistically at the entire value chain, so supply and end of life, as well as the way that we design products. And so we'll talk a little bit about each of these areas, but we believe that this is an opportunity for us to really continue to innovate and lead the industry, just as we pioneered the wearables category, almost 13 years ago. So let's just step through a few of these. On the waste and e-waste, I think this is probably well known by those participants here today, but e-waste, continues to grow as we continue to have technology and innovation, and grows at an even more rapid rate when you look at the more developed countries, and in particular in North America, as well as globally. And so we know that there's going to be more electronic waste, and so what can we do with that in mind, right? So if we acknowledge that, how can we help participate in reducing that, awareness of that, and what can we do to help a more sustainable future? There's also toxic and hazardous chemicals. So, by this, these are chemicals and substances that pose threats to both people and to the environment. So that is that they could hurt the workers and also the environment surrounding where manufacturing and recycling take place. So that's another area that we've all heard about. Workers who may end up developing cancers because of exposure risk, or in certain environments, or polluted rivers. So something that we need to look at as an industry. There's also the people part of this, so labor and human rights, and so making sure that throughout the supply chain, that individuals along the supply chain are involved in responsible and fair treatment of individuals. Complex issues around different countries, different tiers of the supply chain as we look at global businesses and global economies. But certainly things like overtime, unfair wages, young workers, forced labor, all of those issues, again, should be front and center and are part of the value chain and need to be considered as we look at wearable devices and electronics more broadly. Water. I live in California, and I'm here with you today from California, really important an issue in California right now. So water is under heavy consumption as electronic parts get built, as part of the whole, again, supply chain, from circuit boards and connectors and all sorts of things that are maybe outside my specific expertise, but a lot of our team thinks a lot about every day. And water scarcity being a big issue, certainly exacerbated by climate change and the demands of energy that we're putting on this relationship between the world and the water demand, and how can we be thoughtful about our approach to that as well. So how do we reuse, recycle, and reduce water utilization, in the environment and as part of the manufacturing process. So again, a really important one that hits very close to home for me. There's also, when you think about energy, so carbon footprint, energy consumption as part of creation of raw materials, and again, the manufacturing process. This is where we believe that there's a huge opportunities for brands to work together and across the vertical in the industry to help make meaningful change in this area. And then, ecosystem. It's not only just about pollutions, but deforestation, mining, other types of factory building and utilization, oceans. They're all affected by plastic waste, and so making sure that we approach this widespread global issue with thoughtful and intentional development across the way that we build our products and again, the supply and value chain. Sustainability. So we are really committed, and that's why we're, again, so excited to be working with GEC and EPEAT today, is that we believe that sustainability, again, belongs to everyone in the same way that health belongs to everyone. And over the past several years, we've developed this sustainability team. It's really a cross-functional effort and a cross-functional team that infiltrates our whole process, from the way that we build and design products to be more more active and to help individuals live their healthy and most active lives, but also how can we apply that same healthy behavior for our bodies, and how do we provide for health of the planet and health and sustainable future, and providing that kind of throughout our design and build and manufacturing and value chain process. And so we're really committed to this as an organization, and again, with a broad cross-functional effort, because it really does need to look at all of the pieces we just reviewed, and how can we bring that forward. Great. And so really, you know, the emphasis of this presentation today is really kind of, as you see here, and really focus on the circular economy in specific, but certainly all of these areas are important. But I think we'll step you through kind of where we're focused, and see that it is really a very large part throughout our cross-functional team. So initially, you know, when we focus on the circular economy, we're focused on incorporating recycled materials. So, you know, one particular thing is we incorporated Reprieve recycled yarn into our woven band. So we offer a woven band for our Fitbit devices. And so how are we looking at how can we use PET or metal based products that have a longer lifespan? And so we think about those and are very thoughtful about what materials we can use that are sustainable, but also the testing and the development process as we introduce new materials. You know, so we're really thinking about both the user and the consumer experience, as well as the environmental impact. So we really are looking at that very holistically. We're also looking at product recyclability, and really proud to announce that our recent products that we've just introduced into the market use a whole new packaging design. And one of the main goals of the new packaging design was to improve recyclability and repairability to help to reduce e-waste, which we talked about earlier. So we're actually going to present more on that later on in the fall around it at an e-waste conference in November. But generally what we did was take out as many non-recyclable elements as we could out of our packaging design, but still balance that with having a really beautiful experience for the consumer. And I think what we've done in our latest designs, as you see them, is show that you can very artfully combine that balance of maintaining the beautiful and the high-end and premium value of a packaging design, and do that in a sustainable way. I think we only have kind of two very small things that are not 100% recyclable right now, and we'll continue to innovate and work on those areas. It's kind of the plastic coating that sits on top to protect the screen through shipment process, and kind of through that chain, the supply chain there. But for the most part, everything is really sustainable. That's a big step up for us, and I think for the industry. And so I would encourage you to kind of seek that out on your next virtual shopping trip, and kind of take a look at that, because I think we haven't compromised any quality to help with the sustainability piece. We're also committed to reducing manufacturing waste, so improving product manufacturability and repairability. So how do we focus on really quality to reduce product defects, scraps, you know, all of that. And so we're very focused on a quality initiative internally as well, again, going through our whole cross-functional team. And then phasing out non-circular plastics, excuse me. So this goes back to our new packaging as well, which is where we've designed it with that sustainability in mind, and that recyclability in mind. So we removed a lot of that lamination and the paper to help increase that recyclability in global regions, you know, and because we know that again, those guidelines vary by market as well. And so we're, as a global company, we're very conscious of that, and pay attention to what the recyclability guidelines are in each market globally. And so again, that little protective film and and then there's a little hang tag. Those are really only the pieces left that are not recyclable or even compostable in some cases. So really proud of the work that we've done there. I think shows our commitment to looking at this in a holistic way. And then we're continuing to assess substances for, any harmful chemicals that may be part of the manufacturing process, and have a commitment to continue to reduce those, as well as continue to make sure that we're testing and, again, balance wearability and usability for our customers, as well as the health of the planet. So really, we've spent a lot of time in the last several years focused on improving the product life cycle overall in this circular economy. And then we're also focused around value chain responsibility. So this is where we believe that as an industry, we can influence and we have a responsibility to look at that whole supply chain. So again, how do we responsibly source materials, protect workers throughout that manufacturing process, look at the chemicals that are used along the way, and how can we partner with our supply chain and our partners, as well as with the industry and other wearables and health and wellness manufacturers, to make sure that as an industry and as a vertical, we can have influence over that. And then, of course, environment and climate action. So we believe that this is, an area that we can both address and document our current state, but also, an area that we want to strive for continual improvement as there are more innovations, as the science, as we learn more about the science, how can we continue to foster innovation in this area, again, throughout the industry, with us as an influential player in that market, to be able to use the most innovative best practices, from water consumption to offsets of carbon emissions, to be able to make sure that we are taking care of not only our own health, but the health of our planet. So we're really committed into this. And these are, again, just some of the steps that we've previously taken and where we'll continue to have impact. The suspense. See if we can get this next slide to advance here. Okay, there we go. Oops, now we're going too fast. There we go. So we're focused, again, on sustainability throughout our process and our value chain. And so just to kind of step through these, first we're doing a product life cycle assessment. So this is literally looking at from the start of an inception of a new product all the way through its life cycle, and looking at kind of greenhouse gas emissions as part of that process. We're also looking at that chemical impact assessment. And so we do an assessment process to identify and kind of inventory, if you will, all the substances and chemicals that we use today as part of the manufacturing process, to heighten awareness, as well as look at alternatives as we continue to develop and innovate. Repairability and recyclability assessment. So this is another area where we use third parties actually to reveal and kind of help us identify how repairable our devices are, so that we can, both for the consumer as well as for professionals, to make sure that we have a really great process to think about how we can add to the longevity of our devices. And then certainly, and very important for today's conversation, EPEAT. So working with EPEAT on the list of assessments that we currently do, and help, with direct conversations internally and externally with our stakeholders, whether those be our partners, our retailers, our enterprises, and our consumers, on how to create sustainable wearables. And so this is really where we're focusing a lot of our work, and we do this throughout this life cycle, and we've kind of implemented this within our own practice. So we have kind of these assessments we use as part of our design process, as part of our manufacturing process with the restricted substances, and then also in our new product development checklist. So it's actually very well integrated and infiltrated, if you will, into our process. And I think that's really the way that you can promote sustainability within an organization, is when it's a cross-functional effort and really takes a look at holistically from the end-to-end solution. And so how we're working and want to work with EPEAT and where we'd encourage industry partners to come alongside us, and that's kind of really the rallying cry today is how can we rally together? And this is actually one of our corporate goals for this year is really rallying together as an organization, and I think it's very applicable here. So again, just goes back to that kind of circular economy. It's not only in the design, but there are also systemic issues that are really going to take an industry and a movement, if you will, physical and literal, to share what's working, share where we have gaps and where we need to innovate further, share that commitment to continuing to a process of continual improvement, and to optimizing our resources. So that's really the ask of you all today. If you have the opportunity to help influence across the ecosystem, that's really important. Engaging our stakeholders. So again, building relationships with our suppliers, with our partners, with our vendors, with retailers, all of those who have a stake and can help support this commitment to innovation. A commitment to both transparency in what we're doing today and where we have room for improvement, to help embrace that. And again, I think that will take the industry to do, because it is a global challenge, of course. And then change management, which is just, we know that this is important to many of our consumers today. And so how can we help drive market demand for more sustainable products and drive that meaningful conversation with our customers and with, again, our partners in the ecosystem to share with them what we're doing and our commitment, and to learn from them and to make it an important reason why they want to buy, and what they can do to help participate in that value chain, excuse me. So really important things that I think we're committed to and in our partnership with EPEAT, and how we'd like to engage, and I think just emphasizes our holistic approach in a sustainable way across the health of both our consumers and our constituents as well as the planet. And so with that, I just want to thank you for your time today. We hope that you'll take the rallying cry and partner with us to help us all have a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. I love seeing the innovation and commitment to sustainability and circularity, and it's really exciting to see the innovations that you've done, and particularly in the context of the pandemic. So there's a lot going on there, a lot happening in everybody's lives, and I love to see the continued commitment and seeing everything as a holistic focus. So really appreciate the insights into what you're doing at Fitbit. So yeah. As I mentioned earlier, and it was alluded to by Nancy and Amy too, I want to give you a few details about what to expect from the category development process, and most importantly, as Amy mentioned, as Nancy mentioned, how we can get you involved and help make this category that much more effective, more impactful, and more important for our purchasers and for our world. That's what we're focused on in this slide here. So coming up next month, you'll see our State of Sustainability research coming out for public review. It's an important opportunity for you to review this initial starting point discussion for what sustainability impacts there are that we see, what's the state of the industry, and for you to provide us insights, comments, and additional information as we start the category development process. Then early next year, GEC will be pre-drafting some new and unique criteria, and we'll open up applications for technical committees that will review the draft criteria at that time. Look for selection for membership on those committees to happen sometime in the February timeframe. And then meetings will continue periodically to take place through probably about August of next year. And that means in the summer, you can expect to see the release of the draft criteria, category criteria for public review. This is your big chance to see what the criteria will look like and provide comments to help further refine them. And all this leads up to the finalization of these criteria and the formal category launch in the fall of next year. So if you have any questions, would like to get involved, please reach out to me. My contact information is there. You can also reach out to us on the GEC website. We will figure out how to best get you involved. And yeah, so it looks like we have about 10 minutes left. We do have some questions. Amy and Nancy, if you've got a few minutes, some interesting ones, maybe a couple of minutes of response on each. We'll try to get as many, obviously, answers as we can, being respectful of everybody's time. So this first one, Amy, looks like it'd be a great question for you to start off with. So this is, start with an observation that wearables seem to last only a couple of years. And what are current options for recycling, reuse, or improving that lifespan?
Sure. Thanks, Ben. So I think, and thanks for the question. I think that this is an area where we need continued innovation in the industry. Wearables as a category are fairly young. Even us as the pioneer, only 13 years old. So that's, I think there's more work to be done in this area. I think there's a variety of strategies that we are looking at, as well as I think the industry needs to look at. One is, designing for longevity. So really thinking about how do you design a sustainable product and ensuring that the device can last a long time. One very simple way that we've been doing that already is providing for software updates. And so to the extent that you can build things in so that the new product, you can get new product or new features and enhancements even with an existing product, I think is one way to do that. Another one is designing for modularity, right? So ensuring that a device can be upgraded easily, whether that's that firmware that I was talking about, where you might get new software enhancements, or upgrading module parts of a device as technology innovates. And then another one is designing for service models. So again, back to, and we kind of mentioned this during our presentation, but repairability, reusability, recyclability, so that when that product does eventually reach its end of life, that there are sustainable ways to recycle and reuse that, and that we have a process for that in place. So I think those are some of the strategies that the industry at whole can look at.
That's great. Really interesting stuff. Nancy, I've got one question that asks you to dig a little bit deeper into why what we're seeing a focus on health and wellness wearables in this category.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Ben. So, as I mentioned, we support institutional purchasers, and so there are a lot of technologies that are out there. We're at this time period where the wave of technology is just increasing. So there's the choice of technologies that we could address, but we never choose to actually cover a category if we can't point to institutional purchaser demand. And so, as I mentioned, what we're starting to see is, and we've been approached by a number of, not surprisingly, healthcare systems who are wanting to use wearable technology both on site, but also as a way to actually engage with their patients who are at home or are remote. So it's an extension of the recognition of the power of telemedicine, but now being able to actually put wearables into that dimension. So we're seeing that. I mentioned during the presentation, we're seeing a significant demand from educational institutions. Of course, there had already been the demand by companies who wanted to invest in the health and well-being of their particular staff members. This now is also something that is really important as those staff members are working remotely. And as we're seeing in the stories, and I must admit, I use Fitbit for this personally, that the stressors of today's world, we may not be paying attention to such things that are simple like getting enough sleep, and being able to understand that these are the products that companies who are committed, like we are to our staff, making sure that they're able to deal with that stress even when they're working from home and they're not able to engage with their colleagues. So there's a lot of additional institutional purchaser demand that we have noted, and that's one of the reasons that we're pursuing this particular category now. So I hope that answers the question, Ben.
I think so. That's great, Nancy. We appreciate that. Amy, one for you. Is Fitbit seeing purchaser interest in more sustainable products? And if yes, what sectors or applications?
Yes, I would say we are seeing that demand. And I would say a couple different sectors I'd point out that really dovetail with what Nancy was speaking about. So I spent a lot of time working with enterprises in the health solutions business, helping with population health. And so, government, healthcare, with which Nancy mentioned, employers are all focused on bringing sustainable and environmentally responsible products to market. For their employees, whether that's utilization for their employees or their members or their patients in the case of a hospital setting. So we're certainly seeing it there across enterprise. We're also hearing it from some of our retail segments who are committed to that. So we work with many large retailers as well as with telecom. And so those categories are also very interested in that demand. And then certainly we hear it from consumers as well.
Great, thanks. Just a quick reminder to folks, please do use the questions box. It's the easiest way to get us the questions that you've got. Speaking of, just a quick follow-up to that, Nancy, someone is asking, what's the e-waste conference that you're presenting at in November? If you have a second to tell us about that.
Actually, I think this is an e-waste conference that Amy is presenting at, and I'm pretty sure it might be the same conference. Amy, are you presenting Fitbit's information at the one that's being hosted, would have been hosted in Germany, which actually is my home country, or is there another e-waste conference that Fitbit is talking about some of your advancements at?
That it's actually not me presenting, so I will find out, but we as a company are presenting. We can get the details. I don't know if there's a way we could share out the details of that with the audience, if there's a way to do that following the session. I'll get some more details so that we can pass it along in case people are interested in hearing more. But Nancy, you are correct that it is that same event that would have been in your home country is now not in person, but we'll get you the details on the time and location so that we could provide that to the attendees today.
And if I may say, one of the reasons that I thought it might be the one is that the Green Electronics Council is super excited. We're part of the advisory committee, and we may have mentioned that Fitbit was doing some interesting work and may have to be featured. May have done that.
We appreciate that partnership if it happened.
Great. Okay, Nancy, question for you about which large-scale purchasers are we seeing that are buying health and wellness wearables, and why do we think that that's happening?
Yeah, I think it's the ones that I had previously mentioned in those different areas, and I think it's happening again because, of course, we're living through this horrible time period of COVID. I think, though, it's also an extension as people recognize the value of being able to use technology now, especially because we have the connectivity ability to be at home and to benefit, to be at the workplace, to be wherever we physically are, and yet still get reminders, still go ahead and get the feedback and the guidance that this technology provides. Now, I know that we've talked about this, and I do want to mention this as well. One of the areas that we really hope to get participants to engage in is the fact that we understand that wearables actually benefit because there's a lot of sensitive information that's being shared on this technology, and it's that type of personal identifying information that actually makes it really valuable and that we see the benefit, but we also understand the sensitivity of that. So I did want to make sure as we actually ask everybody who's participating, who's thinking about being part of the criteria development process, any of those who have the expertise in data and this type of data and how this data works, to really be part of this process as well. Because I know that Fitbit has expressed, of course, their sensitivity and commitment to the appropriate use of data. We, as the Green Electronics Council, also, of course, see this as a very important social impact. But I must admit, it is an area that we've never actually had to address before. So not only are we really asking those participants who have a background and interest in this to be part of the process, we also are, and I know, Ben, I'm saying we, but you are looking at external third-party research and think tanks who could help actually inform our understanding of this. And I know that many people, when you talk about wearables, but particularly in the health and well-being sector, that this is an area of sensitivity. So I just wanted to bring up that ourselves, as well as Fitbit, of course, are very aware of that and seek to actively address it.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Thanks so much, Amy. This has been a wonderful conversation, really informative, interesting, exciting. And once again, we are excited about this category and really interested in getting everybody involved. So please reach out. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out this webinar. Thank you so much from the Green Electronics Council. Everybody stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.